couple of years before the pandemic, and I was looking up bicycling laws to try to have some kind of connection with the library bike. I should go back and revisit that.
I'll start the recording in a second. I did push us through to YouTube, and I think that's why.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm a little sluggish. I might not quite have enough bandwidth to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We've got fiber here, so we're well set. But my computer's it's time for a new computer.
Yep, it could be that time.
Did you read do you have a copy of the State of the Profession?
I didn't read the full report. I did read Bob Ambrogie's summary, and then I sent it around to my staff. I'm debating if I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, it's $180.
Yeah, of course, I just canceled a $7,000 title from CCH, so I probably could scrape this.
Well, yeah, I wanted to cover what was in here. I thought that was interesting. Then there are a couple of cases. I thought there was a recent article from Legal Tech News. I can't remember. This is the NAACP from South Carolina trying to scrape the eviction data from the Law Technology Today. Yeah, that's the one.
Likely headed to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I don't know why they say that. I didn't find a filing or anything like that. A couple of cases of topic that we're on.
Yeah, Mike, we're going to have to come up with really great great content in a couple of weeks, because we'll have a pretty
I know
challenging audience, I think.
I know. I was thinking Stump the Chumps, maybe, or that'd be a good one. All these super qualified professionals.
As long as we could stump them. I do not want to be put on the spot where they try to stump us.
Oh, no, really? Okay. Well,
because they'll just come up with the things they couldn't find.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, maybe we should meet ahead of that. We've got 2 weeks for that one.
Yeah.
And some kind of game might be fun, though. We could promote that a little bit. And
for sure. Yeah.
I'm gonna get us rolling here.
Sounds good.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Mike.
Welcome back. We are live for another edition of the Gray Paper Podcast. I'm Mike Carlson with Gray Paper Legal.
I'm Karen Westwood, Director of the Hennepin County Law Library.
Welcome back, Karen. Thanks so much for joining again this Friday morning. Very happy to have you. We're here to discuss, as we always do, the recent legal research news. As it turns out, there is such a thing, and the most interesting legal research question of the week. Before we get started, I just wanted to touch base on a couple of items that did pop up in the news recently. I thought this item from Bob Ambrogie's website. I don't have and I didn't pay the $180 for the report. Do you get a member discount as a member?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we get a member discount. I was just talking with Mike about whether we'll buy this one or not. Probably we will, because it's really helpful as librarians to know what folks are dealing with in practice. So for county law libraries, we want to know, should we get data analytics software? Because that, of course, seems to be really interesting to a lot of firms. And law school libraries want to know what their students will be experiencing when they get out into practice. And so it's an important report for those of us in law librarianship.
Very, very interesting. So what we're talking about here is the State of the Profession report from AALL, the American Association of Law Librarians. Tell me a little bit about this report. Is this just a survey?
Yeah, it's a survey, and they survey, as Bob explains, there are three types of libraries: government law libraries, academic law libraries, and firm law libraries. And the questions were around, like, what is your library's role in technology in your workplace? So do you make decisions about what technology your organization purchases? Do you test technology either in advance of purchase or as part of the onboarding? Do you train? Do you use the technology for research and so forth? And you can see that first graph is, 94.5% of librarians recommend technologies for their workplace. So
yeah, it surprised me not at all. Almost seemed like a funny question, actually. Is your librarian in charge of the library? 100% of firm librarians are responsible for overseeing research databases.
Right.
Is that
But
true?
36% of them are overseeing the KM system. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And we used to, when I was working in a law school, sometimes the law librarians were tasked with teaching tech that wasn't involved in research. For instance, they had some online class coursework, and then we would train either professors or students in how to use the online course management system. So you do get pulled into different kinds of tech.
Yeah, and there are other professionals in this space. You've got administrators and other folks, other associations, in fact, dedicated to those professionals.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting. Fortunately, Bob Ambrosi, who we're cribbing from here, has gotten a hold of the report and reported on it at lawnext.com. So there's definitely some interesting things here. Of course, I jumped down to the most used research tools first, which I thought was interesting. Wolters Kluwer, I was surprised to see at the top, but that's really just a broad range of categories, right? That's tax and compliance and all the CCH materials. That's just a load of stuff. So for corporate law libraries, of course, I would think that all of that stuff, whether you have a low end subscription or kind of everything, that's, I guess.
I had the same reaction, Mike. I thought, my goodness, Wolters Kluwer. And then I refreshed my memory about how much material they have available around regulatory stuff, materials. So, but then it's different. When further down, I think he summarizes what government law libraries use most. And of course, it's Westlaw and Lexis and Bloomberg right up top.
Yeah, interesting here too to see Westlaw at 86%, and then Lexis. Usually, you see Westlaw and Lexis right at the top, but
right,
Fine Online and Bloomberg in between there. LexisNexis or Lexis Plus only is 65%. That surprised me a little bit. That
surprised me. It surprised me that Hein Online was used by more firms than Lexis.
Yeah. And I know Hein is super popular, but still a little bit surprised to.
Yeah, no, Hein is a very good value, but the search interface is just not as robust as Lexis or Westlaw.
In my my perception to see Casetext down here at 7.7 also surprised me, but I suppose just because of their introduction of co-counsel recently, I expected this to be much higher because their presence right now is, at least on social, is so perhaps outsized at the moment, just because they've adopted a new technology, have tested the product. So in my head, it's a bigger product than maybe that it really is, but just 7.7. And I think Thompson came out recently with a survey of folks, of law firms, asking them whether or not they intend to use generative AI or rely on any of the large language models. And of course, that the summary, I'll make sure I drop that into the show notes, but the results were attorneys felt it couldn't replace their job, but for the people that they hire, for the people that were under them, staff, etc.,
Right.
it
Yeah.
would work. So I guess it doesn't surprise me that shouldn't surprise me that some of the folks who are adopting the new AI tools are still at the bottom. Though Bob Ambrosi also reported this week, and I specifically asked Lexis this week because I was testing out Lexis Plus, what their plans were for the new large language models and ChatGPT, and they blew me off.
Yeah.
I guess they couldn't have me scooping Bob Ambrosi.
I don't think so. But why not, Mike? Maybe it's time.
It's right. I think it's our time, Karen.
It's good to remember that this survey likely was done, I don't know, 6 to 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So
Also
some
true,
of
yeah.
this, with the advances in those large language models, I'm sure it's not capturing a lot of the buzz.
Yeah, you're probably right there. Yeah, I forgot about that. The introduction of co-counsel isn't even 3 months old, is it? I mean, that's
right. I'm
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But case text will pop up often if you're just doing a Google search for their results rank highly. If you're searching for a case, you'll get a case text result or a statute. It will pop up before you get to the state's website. So I'm just surprised. I don't know what the question was, where they have what you say when you're using case text. But it's so present even in a Google search. You get case text results quite regularly, which I like. I like that you can access. Like Fastcase also has this ability to have a public view of the documents that you can just share publicly. You don't need to have a subscription. Case text has that as well. Obviously, if they're popping up in Google results, Fastcase does not appear in any Google results though.
Oh, yeah.
But 11.5, I would think that because the question here had to do with, I guess, active subscriptions. I see. So yeah, that
right.
like not use, it's active subscriptions.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on news in a little bit here. I have questions for you about news. But this is interesting too. Docket navigators way up there. Lex Machina, very popular, which is a Lexis product.
Right.
PitchBook, FactSet, something like FactSet. Never heard of it.
Yeah, some of these things I've heard of them, and I think, oh yeah, law firms use that. But yeah, I don't know PitchBook. That must be some kind of marketing aggregator. But yeah, look, librarians in government settings, 97% use Westlaw, 89% use Lexis. So that's the world, the pool that I swim in. So that makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, and I obviously didn't read carefully. 179 is the discounted price for AA members, 280 for non-members. But you can get the executive summary.
Sure.
I thought that was interesting, that with all of the hype around AI right now, interesting to see it. But as you say, be more interesting to see this next year, probably.
Right. Yep. In another year or two, we'll see what's going on.
Lexis Plus, or Lexis, announced their adoption. Kind of, I don't know what did you think about the fact that that's only being given to a handful of the AmLaw 20, and I think some additional practitioners as well. My little operation probably does not qualify again for a test run of the new tool, but I kind of thought, well, it's a rolling launch, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they do that. Actually, all the vendors do that to some extent, roll out to certain categories and then get to the next. They'll start with law schools, just start with firms and then roll out to law schools. Government law libraries are almost always the last to be able to see new products,
Yeah.
except when we go to the large conventions and then we see them demonstrated. So
I guess
and sometimes we can get like a peek, but we don't get like trial passwords or an opportunity to buy until it's rolled out to others, which is not terrible actually, because a lot of
oh,
bugs get worked out, kinks
yeah,
are
that's right.
worked out.
For sure. And I guess what I was thinking is that they was publicized, isn't that usually a quiet thing where the
I think they start trying to drum up interest, and then you want to be
really?
like the big boys. And I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's some of that, but who knows? I am not a marketer. There's a reason I'm not in the private industry.
I feel, and I could probably, I'm probably totally wrong about this, but I always felt like, well, I learned afterwards that it got to, Shepherd and to or whoever, before it got to the rest of the world, but learned about that after it became publicly available, and they're able to demonstrate then that they worked out the bugs, and that the firms found it very useful, and they gather their testimonials and things like that. But,
right. Well, they do that. I mean, Lexus probably has already done that piece with a few like private folks to beta test and keep things under wraps for a while.
Yeah, I probably don't need to be so sensitive. I'm eager to. I promised myself this week I was not going to jump into any AI. I did attend one additional AI for lawyers seminar this week. But our colleagues in this space are just super busy right now. It seems like there's a dozen of these each week, and as I say, so far I've not capitalized on it. I'm not sure how to make it work. I've still retested this idea of having it solve the New York Times letterboxed puzzle. Can't make it happen. Trying to get it to process a rule set that's got sort of layered rules on it. Still can't make it calculate a date for me using Bing Chat primarily. So I don't know. I probably have quite a bit more to learn about prompt engineering, but
I attended a short Lexus sponsored webinar on data analytics, Lex Machina, and they'd done a survey of firms. So when you attend something like that, the data is fresher than a printed report like this AALL report. And so you take it with a grain of salt, right? They want the results to be a certain way. But it's interesting to me that they were saying that firms use data analytics more for market research and development than they do for litigation. So
I believe that, and I think that's how, during my time at Thompson, and that's how we used to produce something called a go to lunch report, where and maybe that's just I kind of assumed that was a standard industry term where you gather the recent litigation history of prospective clients, news, industry information.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And you gather that into a report so you can talk intelligently to your about what the firm might be able to do for them, where they're litigating and things like that.
Right.
You know who your competitors are, who other attorneys. So that's we offer that as a service here. I've never actually delivered that to anyone outside of just my own interest, but so I don't know.
It's a great idea. I just remember early on, at least towards law librarians, they were marketing or pitching it as a litigation tool. So if you were arguing a summary judgment in front of a particular judge, and they really hit that aspect of it pretty hard. So it's interesting to me that, it's used a lot for that, but as much or more for these kinds of marketing pitches.
It seems
and
more
competitive
useful.
Intelligence, I'm sure.
Yeah, it just seems more useful for that kind of thing. I mean, what do you learn about with the litigation analytics? Some basic expectations. Well, it takes 2 years to get to a ruling on a summary judgment. So that on a motion, so that's maybe helpful. But I think it totally makes sense to me that that's what people are using it for.
Right. Yep.
Though my clients seem to love the litigation analytics when I'm able to deliver it. If I've got it,
Yeah.
they seem to love it. But
Yeah.
and then I was looking for the other news item I just wanted to touch on was we've talked about the availability. Speaking of data analytics and accessing court data, one of the struggles is that it's very, very difficult to get to state court data. When you grab some of these materials, these litigation analytics reports, easy to do if it's federal. If it's state material, it's
Right.
just it's hardly ever available. And part of the reason for that is not just the fact that a county might not be doing the most sophisticated management of their records digitally, but that we don't allow folks to scrape the data. So there are a couple of cases, and just spotted this one from this is actually last month, came up in my LinkedIn feed. That's how I spotted it. But the South Carolina NAACP suing to be able to scrape eviction cases from the public website, and they're denied. Scraping is not allowed. Scraping is not allowed here in Minnesota either. It specifically says the terms of use, under the terms of use, it says you can't do any of that.
Right.
And so they sued, and this one looks like it might be headed to the Supreme Court. So I'll be interested to see the progress on this one. It's a First Amendment claim, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
The interesting thing for this is that they wanted the eviction information because they want to identify trends, right?
Sure.
Who's the data is important. It's not just building a new tool that they can use to make it easier, though that's maybe part of it, but also to identify who's getting evicted and
Right.
where they're getting evicted from, and things like that. So that's super interesting. I don't fully understand, beyond the fact that there are probably some privacy concerns
Oh, yeah.
about, but I'm not sure I fully understand the state's, because it is available to an attorney to review, and we have professional obligations, but and that was part of the conversation in this case, in a case called this one here, Courthouse News Service versus Haid. It says, well,
Virginia. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little dicey that the court's really concerned with protecting privacy, and at least in Minnesota, they had a lot of trouble with attorneys complying with redacting records properly.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just always this concern. They see these people who are being stalked and terrorized and just don't want to make it any easier. Doesn't really address the question of wholesale scraping. But I think that also can be used to, I don't know, to generate scams and to target, mass numbers of people with unwanted solicitations.
Right.
Although
That's not the kind of thing.
even now without the ability to scrape, but at least they make it a little harder.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, I as I say, I've skimmed both those cases. I just recently became aware of them, but I'm looking forward to following up on them. So I'm not 100% sure and I don't believe any of these cases have outlined the policy concerns. Obviously, it's been
Right.
about standing and the First
Sure.
Amendment. So
Yeah.
what standard should apply and things like that. But
Well, Mike, you understand more about these large language models. Would the ability to scrape these trial level cases improve the ability of something like ChatGPT to have sound results, or do they not rely on that kind of data?
well, they probably don't. The whole purpose of having like Lexis and case text, they're telling us is that the likelihood of so-called hallucinations is reduced by virtue of the fact it's being trained on legal data specifically. So
Right.
the corpus of information is not everything on the web, it is legal documents. And so you get better legal style results. Because these language models are just, I mean, they create words. It's a word assembler, right?
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
mostly oversimplifying it, obviously, but in our testing, when we do the when my colleague and I were trying to get those multiple rule sets to process, comes up with a really great result, right? The language sounds exactly right. What is 6 days from Monday? Well,
Mhm.
under the rule, that's going to be the next Monday because the day follows, because Saturdays and Sundays don't count.
Yeah.
So you get this answer that says, because the rule says X, it's going to be, and then the answer is Sunday. And then you say to the, you say, but isn't that a Sunday? And they say, yes, you are right. Actually, according to the rule. So it corrects itself. And so you have got all of this data, and its ability to extract data is pretty cool, right? To extract and
Right.
distill that information. I think that's really what's awesome about it. It's going to enable you to scan all of those, all of that eviction data, much faster than a human could, and
Mhm.
give you good insights without having to spend much time doing it. But if it's trained against the legal data, the argument is that you're getting better,
Sure.
less
Yeah.
hallucinatory results, at least in terms of legal information. We will see.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Exactly.
It's funny. It's like I'm gonna make fun of my dad here, who probably not listening. It's like he no longer drives, right? So I drive him when we go to places. He's like, where are you going? You need to take a right here. It's like, Dad, you haven't been in a car, and you can walk there, but we've never. All of the authority of a father talking to his son. No, this way.
Yep. Yep.
I may just be triggered by ChatGPT now, but when Bing Chat pops up and says with authority, here's the answer. I'm like, no, that's actually not
No.
true, right? That's
Right.
wrong.
Right. Yep.
So yeah,
Definitely.
it was like my dad, but it'll with all that data, it'd be interesting to see what you might be able to do with it with a large language model. But it's also, we're also talking numbers, and I don't know, because it's a language model, I'm not sure exactly how that works.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
long intro into, Karen, what was your most interesting legal research question of the week?
I'm going to deflect to you, Mike, because you said you were interested in news, right?
Yes.
Wasn't
Well,
that your question? And I
I,
wanted to talk about that a little bit.
I was interested. It was interesting to see that this category, not just a product, news aggregators, was at the top of the list. And my colleague and I were thinking, hey, we do these document automations for our clients. Part of what we do, we create a document, and we use that to create a template, which is automated. And we wanted to, rather than just complete it and then deliver that as a final product, to be able to maintain it over time, just a standard, what's called a managed services agreement. And so from month to month, we would make sure that form is continually up to date. If they've got edits they want to make to it, they can send it to us. But wouldn't it be nice, because we do legal research, to stay on top of all of the citations in the document? A lot of these things just refer to the cause of action, for example, by the statutory number. That's easy to do. I can set up an alert for that.
Sure.
But the more we talked about it, the more the challenging piece is, they're likely, I don't live in California. I don't live, I live here in Minnesota, and they're more likely to be engaged with the local bar association, with their colleagues down the hall. I don't know a good way for me to get a jump on updates in their practice area necessarily. JD Supra I like, and I've got a number of services that I like. Thomson Reuters is pretty good, but oftentimes, and I love the Law Street Media from, so there are a lot of really good legal research or law, I should say, law related news sites. I think at least with JD Supra, though, it's a little more down to earth. You've got like estate planning as a topic, which I'm not sure is something you'd find on Law Street Media.
Right.
Because they're in these sort of major categories at big firms. Bloomberg, we're paying attention to these big subject matters. And oftentimes it's a proposed bill, it's an amended regulation, it's a municipal code, and I'm also just not sure how to organize all of this stuff. I don't jump to Law Street every day or Bloomberg or what ends up happening is I go to Above the Law because it's kind of snarky and fun,
Yeah, exactly.
or my LinkedIn feed, right? That article we saw from Legal Tech News was a month old, and I didn't spot it until this week. So all of that was just, I wanted to ask you kind of what your favorite news resource.
Well, I do know that a lot of our patrons are interested in law360.com.
Yeah.
So, because they have I have to say, I think they're kind of clickbaity headlines. And the articles themselves are about 3 paragraphs long, so they don't feel like a very deep treatment of anything. But of course, that's not what people want. They just want to get a 3-paragraph summary of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then Law 360 often will link a relevant document, like the complaint, or if it's reporting on a decision, it'll link to the order in the federal docket. And so people really love that. I don't, in my line of work, really aggregate news. I let my patrons ask me for what they're looking for. And these days, with some of these sites that you're describing, people can do that on their own much better. I think in the past, one of the roles of a law firm librarian would be to gather, like newsletters and various headlines. And then in the early days of the internet, set up kind of searches that they would run on a regular basis and pull the results and send out to attorneys. But I think these days, a lot of attorneys are doing much of that on their own in their specialty practice area, and they're part of that section of the Bar Association, and so forth. So it's a little difficult from a research perspective because our world is the whole universe of law. And if you practice, estate planning, then like what publications and what organizations are the ones to check to stay on top of things.
Yeah, and as I say, JD Supra does have, I believe, in one of their category breakdowns. And I haven't been here. Yeah, estate planning. I jumped in here this week just to see. This is actually pretty nice. I would use this as a resource to stay on top of it. Of course, the publishers, McGuire.
Sure. Yep. They're pulling those little law firm articles. Yep.
Yeah. So these are great. There's also I don't know. Do you ever use LexBlog?
Mm-mm. I was noticing when I was looking at that report that said all these firms used Wolters Kluwer, that you buy these sections of Wolters Kluwer depending on your practice area. And of course, a part of that is to feed you these kind of news items in that practice area. So I think some of the paid products also include that.
they've got a lot of different products here, but actually the LexBlog content is on Fastcase and indexed there, which is kind of nice.
Oh,
This is like, I forget, like 15,000 legal blogs,
oh,
including AmLaw 500 firms, like you can see popping up here. So I've traditionally used this in Fastcase because you can just run a standard
sure.
keyword search
Yep.
for those kinds of things and
Yep.
set up alerts. But you could do that here as well. So this is a site that I've used a number of times as well. But that aggregation piece, that this is something I definitely like to automate the more because it's time consuming, right? Is this relevant
is,
to
yeah.
that particular client? Is it is that the kind of thing that we want to spend some time on? There's another tool that that is quite expensive called I'm blanking on the name right at the tip of my tongue. Raza. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Raza, which I think is used by a number of bar associations or other associations. But what that does is you can give it a collection of resources. So you could jump into LexBlog, find the top 35 estate planning blogs, identify that as a source, and then what it does is it generates a list of articles in a newsletter that you can deliver to a client or a customer.
Yep.
And it's AI generated, right? So it gives you kind of a random list at first, and then based on the number of clicks from your audience, it learns what that particular user wants to know from your selected sources. And so over time, the relevancy gets better and better and better.
Sure.
That's a rather expensive way of doing it, but it's a super valuable tool, especially if you've got thousands of people that you're delivering content to.
Well, sure. If you're a large firm, that would save you significant time. Yeah. Well, Mike, when you said news, of course, I thought about newspapers.
Yeah.
Because it does come up, in litigation and general interest, how to get to newspapers. And these days, these paywalls pop up quite rapidly. So you're just another pitch for your own public library.
Yes.
If anything you're looking for is a month old or older, you can access the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and of course our local newspapers using your library card and ProQuest. We actually have access to much of that through our law library website, but you do here through your public library website with your card. And I was just reading that if you go into a public library branch, the special collections at Hennepin County Library has scanned in old Star Tribune newspapers. So you get the physical paper, a PDF of each page. So you see the advertisements and and every once in a while in litigation, that's what a person needs. They don't need the text in an online format. They need to see what the paper actually looked like. And so that's a new resource.
That is super valuable. That is, I've run into that before where you want the advertising.
Right.
In particular.
Yep. And we get patrons who want that in like firms, right? Maybe a partner is retiring and they want that issue of Minnesota Lawyer or one of these older, the Hennepin Lawyer or the Bench and Bar. And they want the magazine that like had the ad that said Lawyer of the Year or the photograph. And you don't get that when you're on Westlaw. So look, do you have your own barcode memorized?
I do. This popped up though in my
In the old days, your PIN was the last four digits of your landline phone number.
I forgot do I have it memorized? What I was going to ask is, I think, are these, I thought I could get like the Wall Street Journal here same day. Are you,
You know, you might be able to. I forget what they used to call it a blackout period or a blackout
Embargo.
period or a look back or whatever. And
We
it
used to call it an
varies.
embargo. Is that
Or an
some
embargo,
term?
yeah, that's
Okay.
another term. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, maybe you could see if you could browse today's. Well, it says to present, but down here it says May 1st. We're on
yeah.
the 4th, so I don't know if you could try
Uh,
changing that date. Usually there's a little bit of a lag on ProQuest.
I feel like I could pull up today's, may have been on another resource. May not have been ProQuest.
Oh, yeah.
These are I as I say all the time, I love these resources. I use them all the time. I think we had major newspapers or something like that here.
I can't remember. I think they do have a separate entry for the Star Tribune because they hold like historic versions and
Yeah,
um yeah,
Minneapolis
right.
Tribune
There's a
historical.
historical
Yeah,
Minneapolis Tribune.
yeah,
Yeah,
those are fun. A lot of genealogy stuff here too.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't believe they have a news category, do they?
No, you know, they don't.
Newspapers. Here we go.
I'm not entirely satisfied with their listing of online resources, but it's just because they have so many. It's very difficult to
Yeah, I have
get it
not fully
organized.
explored each of these in turn, but
Yeah, there's US News Stream. That might have had it.
feel like I've even like brought up the New York Times. It's just super inconvenient, right?
Right. It's a
I mean,
lot of clicks. You have to either
it,
really want it or do it every day so you
yeah,
can get there. Yeah.
it's a pro quest, so it's going to be the same. Super valuable. I mean, I love it. I use it regularly. But because I want to get the jump on something and be the first to notify my client,
Right.
you
This is
know,
not an efficient way.
it's not going to
I
be
think
the
though,
way
Mike,
to
that
do it.
this might have the more recent stuff. I think this might be a ProQuest premium database that
Oh
has more
yeah,
recent
I didn't
issues.
realize there was a difference.
It just says US Newsstream enables users to search the most recent premium US news content. So
Yeah, newspapers. Let me just grab
the Adirondack. There you go.
Abilene. Yes. East Coast edition.
Let's choose an issue. Yeah, so this has May 5th.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Yes. I thought I could get to the.
Yeah, one of those subtleties. But
That's man. Well, I learned something. That's a good.
that's
Make
our
sure
goal.
I'm in the premium.
Yep, and you can do it from home. It's a sweet deal. And we all pay for it with our taxes, so we should all use it.
We should all use it, right?
And you know, the library, they run analytics on who's using what databases, and they're not going to pay a ton of money if people aren't using it. So
Oh, really? Yeah.
so it's all good. Yes,
only
be sure
using
we're in there a lot. Yep.
I don't have the pub ID for Wall Street Journal memorized because I actually
Mike,
don't
you're
read
just
it
gonna
every
have
day.
to work on
Yeah.
that.
There's not one that I read regularly. So
Well,
I mean, it's really a current awareness problem that I'm having, not even a news. I mean, we could do
right.
The way news is indexed is kind of interesting too.
Right.
We could do a whole program on that with the
Right.
corporate names and all of that stuff being extracted by most of these resources, and I could learn a lot there as well. But it's the current awareness, you know, bills and proposed regs, that's
Yep.
one thing. Changes in, a new case, court filings, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But the local, what the local bar association, what the practitioners from Poughkeepsie have to say about something, just not something that I have my ear to the ground. And with all of
Right.
this stuff, I just sort of think we should be able to have access to that. But
Right. And it's just always been, it's a perennial issue. And that's
yeah,
why these news aggregators are on the market and so forth, is because there's this recognized need to stay on top, as you're pointing out. Because if you're a day late, you might miss out on an opportunity.
right. You want to be the first one to post it to your LinkedIn account, I guess.
That's right. All about social media, Mike.
That's right. US News Stream. All right. Put that in my head as the one to go to. Make sure I'm using the news stream, not the
Yes, that's right.
not the embargoed version, the premium account.
Right. Yep.
Well, Karen, thank you so much again for joining us. Any final thoughts before we jump, or anything you've got planned for the upcoming week?
Well, this isn't so much about research, but next Friday, May 12th, the Hennepin County Bar Association is holding its annual Bar Memorial ceremony or event. This year, they're holding it here in the Government Center in the Jury Assembly Room. So
nice.
I've been a little bit connected with that. The judges are going to use one of our conference rooms as a robing room. So I've gotten a little more connected with that than I have in the past. This is the first time they're doing an in-person event post-COVID, and it's going to be hybrid. So they're very uncertain as to who's going to show up, how to figure out numbers, and so forth.
And the technology.
All of these events. Yeah,
I helped with that during the COVID era, and it was nerve-wracking because well, a couple of reasons. One is we did it entirely virtually, with music and people adore that service.
Oh yeah, it's really important. Yeah.
I talked to one member well past retirement, and that person told me that they're active in the bar because when they pass, they want to be memorialized at the service. I wasn't using fast case, wasn't making any major contributions, participating, but really that wanted to be remembered as a part of that. Super important.
Apparently they're bringing a harp up. There's a piano. There's Judge Bernardson is coming back from wherever she is right now to sing. So I'm sure it'll be beautiful. And it just seems nice to have that as another signpost that things are moving in a direction of a return to normal, but with this added enhancement that you can attend virtually, so you could be retired in Arizona and still memorialize your former colleagues. So it's nice.
I look forward to knowing how that goes. That's super challenging, and that's the kind of event which you gain a lot from it being in person, live. Real bodies connecting with one another. That's what it's about, right? It's passing on of a lived human being, and so the virtual piece didn't feel artificial. You still got a sense of importance from it, but it definitely benefits from people in the room. I think
so. That sense of community, but it will be very interesting to see how it all unfolds. What are you looking forward to next week, Mike?
We during COVID, my son got me into disc golf. It's great. All the courses are free. Most of them are free, easy to do. You don't have to spend a full afternoon. During COVID, he used to come over and just for 45 minutes we could run to the closest course and we'd get a round in, right? Super fun sport, gaining in popularity. It's broadcast on YouTube. So I think what we're trying to put together is a summer-long charity event. And I think, I'm not sure who's going to get our money yet. I reached out to legal court because it kind of seemed like a good fit for us, just because of who they serve and what they do, and kind of in line with our mission anyway. And so we're trying to put together this week the finishing touches on a summer-long disc golf tournament with the proceeds to benefit a local legal aid group, probably Legal Corps. I've reached out to them and see if they want to be the target for our grouping around during the summer. But we thought it'd be kind of a nice, cheeky version of a charity golf tournament.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, so that's what we're hoping to put together. My son and I, this
every man's golf tournament, right?
That's exactly right.
Every person, everyone's.
I don't know if I get some sponsors. I can probably get the folks from Lawya, maybe. I don't know. We'll maybe Thompson wants to pitch in, and modest, probably pay what you will, entry fee kind of thing. So we'll see.
Fun. That's a great idea, Mike. I'll have to get the disc out and start practicing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'd love to have you. You can join our league.
Oh, sure. Sounds great. All right, good. Well, have a great week.
Yeah, you too, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.